There is a sleepy village in the eastern Aegean Sea, on the island of Lesbos in Greece, known for its brilliant blue-green water and empty expanses of beautiful shoreline. The people there, like their parents before them, live mostly from fishing, and all of the families in the village know one another. Tourists and visitors to this village are rare, and the pace of life is a slow one. When the boats began arriving, the residents had never seen anything like it. Life rafts made for 20 people, carrying 50, riding barely above the water. Mothers and infant children, old men and teenagers, all perching precariously on makeshift vessels. And they kept coming. Every day, more and more boats carrying more and more people arrived. By the end of 2015, 300,000 refugees had come through a village of 135 people. And so the islanders took turns, being on the beaches, helping the refugees to shore. They did not have much to give. The island is one of Greece's poorest, but they did what they could. The islanders gave the arrivals water and bread, and they made them coffee. They played with their children, prayed and sang songs, and talked to them about their journeys. The people who had arrived on Lesbos had a long way to go. They would need to get to the mainland, where many would likely be trapped in deteriorating refugee camps. And after that, most would travel through Hungary, where the army had begun to patrol the borders, or Croatia, where the government had started to strategically deposit landmines as a deterrent. The immigration process, even for those who were lucky enough to reach Central or Northern Europe, was and is slow and treacherous, and the political situation grim. Facing all of this, one might argue, what good really would a glass of water, or a piece of bread, or a prayer, or a song do? What is the point of sharing a pot of coffee with 10 people when thousands more are on their way? It is a bit like trying to buy a mansion with pennies, and perhaps as practical. This Sunday, we, too, are giving out bread to one another as we gather around the communion table. We are putting water on the head of a little one and taking her into our community's care. We are making sandwiches and bringing them to the common to share with our hungry neighbors. We are preparing to walk in the Pride Parade, where next Saturday we will sweat our way down the whole 2.5 miles carrying King's Chapel signs, witnessing to God's love for all people. And a cynic could point out that against the battles and the hardships of life, a piece of bread or a bit of water is not much protection. Against the crisis of homelessness in our city, what really is 120 ham and cheese sandwiches? Against the horrors of homophobia and transphobia in our nation, what good is 30 odd people from one little church walking all morning? Against the trials and travails of living, what sustenance is communion bread? What comfort really is the waters of baptism? And yet, The scripture that we read this morning reminds us that there is no better way to witness to the love of God, but to care for one another in our vulnerability, to give water or bread, to walk or witness, to sing and pray, even though it often feels far from adequate, even when we have such long roads to travel on so many different fronts. For we have our greatest treasures in clay jars. Our humanity exists in such vulnerability so that we might care for one another. Against the hardships of the world, and in spite of the imperfection of the offerings, we reach out with love and care and hope, with communion bread, with baptismal water, with marches, and with ham and cheese sandwiches. For it is an improbable but unshakable truth that often the best way of making manifest God's love and hope for the world is through something as basic as a sandwich or an open table, water placed on a forehead, a cup of coffee given to a stranger. And as today's readings remind us, this is how the life of Jesus is made visible in mortal flesh, and how we witness to that light that shines even out of darkness. The people on the island of Lesbos continue to offer these small gifts: water and coffee, sandwiches and welcome, prayers and songs, as the political situation around them remains entrenched, as politicians rail and activists rally. This Sunday, as we make and deliver sandwiches, give and receive communion, baptize a little one, as we prepare next weekend to walk, let us take heart from their example. We cannot do everything, but we can respond to the needs that we see before us, to the vulnerability of our wider community and the vulnerability of one another. We might not be able to feed everyone, but we can feed some and make less hungry people in our city, if only for a day. We might not be able to stop homophobia or bigotry, but we can offer open communion to all with us here. And we can witness to those who will see us marching in pride. We might not be able to tell every child that they are loved and special, but we can show our little ones, from baby Reagan, who we will baptize today, to the children in the nursery, right up to next year's confirmation class. And we can see the need around us not as a burden, but as an opportunity, a chance to witness to the love of God. We can refuse to be intimidated by the enormity of the need, and instead do what we can, working person by person, day by day, making sandwiches when we are asked to, marching when we are called, giving out the bread of life and the waters of creation, person by person, looking always for the needs that we can meet. For it is through this work, more than any other, with which we can make manifest the very glory of God. Praise be to God, and amen.